Welcome to the August installment of our post-secondary webinar series hosted by the Hunt Institute. We are excited to have you all back. I am Dr. Waverly Wissenant. I'm the Deputy Director of Higher Education at the Hunt Institute. The Hunt Institute is a national nonprofit dedicated to supporting and advising education leaders and policymakers nationwide on education issues across the education continuum. For today's webinar, we are discussing unlocking pathways to career and college readiness at the high school or post-secondary level. And as we know, the job market continues to evolve. Preparing students for workforce is essential alongside their academic development. This webinar will explore accessible post-secondary pathways available to high school students through dual enrollment, emphasizing how they can take advantage of free higher education opportunities while still in school. From CTE or career and technical education courses to specialized programs like certified nursing assistants or CNAs and dental hygienist training, students can earn valuable credentials and gain skills that lead directly to high demand trades and careers. So we're going to break down these opportunities and discuss how to navigate these processes and hear from experts on benefits of pursuing trade certificates or college credits before graduating high school. So to support this discussion, we have three wonderful resource experts. We have Dr. Holly Nichols, who's the Associate Director of Research at the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research at North Carolina State University. We have Davis Jenkins, Senior Research Scholar at Community College Research Center at Columbia University, and Elvin James, who's the Associate Dean of Outreach or the CCP Director at Wake Tech Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. And now let me formally pass the mic to Dr. Nichols, who will lead the coming discussion as our moderator. Thank you for being here, Holly.
Thank you, Waverly. We're so happy to be able to be a part of this conversation. By way of introduction, Waverly nicely introduced me as being part of the Belk Center. Just as a quick introduction, the Belk Center is part of NC State University, as she mentioned. It's supported, it is a nonprofit supported by the John M. Belk Foundation, or John M. Belk Endowment. And the purpose of the work that we do is really to support the 58 community colleges in North Carolina. And we do that through a variety of ways. We do research and insights that we can share with leaders that they can act upon. For example, my line of research really looks at course transferability for these dual enrollment students, as well as vertical transfer students from community colleges to universities. And we also, the Belk Center also really focuses on taking those insights and offering contextualized support for college leaders. So we really try to make sure that the leaders who need the information are able to get so in a timely fashion and in a way that they can, make the best decisions for their students and their communities. And a big part of that, and why I'm really excited to be part of this conversation, is dual enrollment. It's incredibly important right now. Just here in North Carolina, dual enrollment is a growing program, and it's reaching over 85,000 students statewide, just here in this state. And all of those dual enrollment pathways, including career and technical education and college transfer pathways, are growing in this state and in states around the country. And it's really important that we're paying attention to which students are having access to that, how are they moving through those pathways. And for that, I'm really excited to introduce Dr. Davis Jenkins, who's with us today. He's a senior research scholar at the Community College Research Center, and he's a research professor in education and social policy analysis at Columbia University's Teacher College. And Davis, just to kind of start us off, your research explores various approaches to engaging students in post-secondary training, working on those degree pathway options for students. Can you tell us about the trends that you're seeing and how higher education institutions are collaborating with K-12 schools to create those on-ramps, especially in career and technical education and other post-secondary training programs?
Sure. So as you know, Holly, I've been at this pathways work for a long time, but I am serious. Perhaps the most exciting strand of work on pathways that I've been involved with is our recent efforts looking at the growing efforts by colleges and K-12 schools, often ideally in partnership with local employers and four-year institutions, to rethink dual enrollment, which is where high school students take college courses in high school, more purposely as an on-ramp to career-connected post-secondary pathways, particularly for the large number of students who aren't pursuing further education and training after high school. Dual enrollment it's huge in North Carolina. 2.5 million students, high school students in 22-23 took at least one college course while in high school. 70% of those are taking courses at community colleges. Historically, colleges have taken a laissez-faire approach to dual enrollment. It's also called dual credit or concurrent enrollment. But they've taken a laissez-faire approach, sort of making it available and availing it primarily to students who are already going to college, which is why dual enrollment is sometimes referred to as historically as programs of privilege. Moreover, they tend to offer general education courses in math and science, and because the teachers are available and composition to teach those courses, they tend to be relatively inexpensive to teach, and that's fine. But college and career advising is available, but students have to seek it out, which leads to another sort of common description, which is sort of random acts. And there's a lot of research, including experimental research, showing that if you take that simply offering college courses for students who aren't from families or going to school where they have a lot of supports to prepare them and guide them into college, it's really not enough. But if you do provide those supports, it's one of the most effective educational interventions I've seen in terms of actually leading to increased college complete, not just college going, but college completion. So in our fieldwork, we're seeing the emergence of a more purposeful approach that we call deep dual enrollment. Instead of just, offering this to college-bound students from college, students who are already going to college, which is good, that they're doing it, but they're expanding it and starting in middle school to recruit students from first generation families and saying, look, here is a debt-free path to an on-ramp to a debt-free path that's going to lead to a career that employers in your area are dying for. Raise awareness, help students meet eligibility, rather than just offering general education courses, which is fine, but they're nevertheless mapping courses to post-secondary bachelor's programs in a major and post-secondary CTE programs. And very, very importantly, the college, working with high school counselors, are intentionally guiding all students to explore interests and help them, begin to think about and develop an initial plan. They're not planning their life out, but it's very important in high school. If you're interested in healthcare or if you're interested in cybersecurity, you got to start taking these courses in high school. And look, you can take from Wake Tech a college course in this field, and we'll get you a step on your way. So there's huge opportunity here. Most jobs that pay a living wage in North Carolina, everywhere else, are held by people with bachelor's degrees, but there are a lot of opportunities for people with applied associate degrees and apprenticeships. Right now, most dev ed is general education courses, but there's this growing pathways movement. A huge opportunity is in secondary career technical education. 4 million students a year in the United States, and many in North Carolina take, are in a career technical track. And they're disproportionately students who might not likely to pursue further education, but look, they're studying career technical. Employers are interested in these people, but like I said, they need an applied associate, an apprentice, or a bachelor's degree to get into these jobs. So here's an opportunity for colleges to reach back down and build these build these pathways. And so that's sort of the general trend we're seeing, but I'll turn it over to Elvin to describe what this really looks like on the ground, because honestly, I've been in the business 43 years, and this is the most exciting work that we've done.
That is so great. I agree. It's an exciting time for this kind of work, and that's why I'm really happy to be able to have that higher level view of the trends nationally and also in the state. And I love that you're picking up on the deep dual enrollment and things like that. And I can't wait to hear from Elvin
I
James, who
want to
joins
say
us.
one more thing though, is
Yeah,
that the
please.
current system of the transition from high school to college currently just dashes the dreams of too many talented students and wastes opportunity. We can't afford, the integration of technologies, AI across all these fields is changing these fields. You can't just have skills training. You need a broader education. So we have the demand and we have the talent. Let's just get rid of this old system that sorts out students, not by their ability, not by their drive, but because of some, obscure math test or something that doesn't mean anything. Sorry to get emotional about this, but
No, I
this is
love
why
it.
I'm excited. We have an opportunity doing the kind of work Elvin's doing, which I'm going to turn over now, to really transform the high school to college from an off ramp to an on ramp, or whatever you want to say. So I am pumped.
Yeah, Elvin. Elvin James is joining us as Associate Dean of Outreach at Wake Tech Community College here in North Carolina. It's the largest community college in North Carolina. And he leads their traditional college and career promise program that reaches over 3,000 students a year. And I want to hand it over to him to take the reins. Davis is pumped, Elvin. Tell us what you're seeing. Tell us what you're seeing on the ground.
Yes. So, first and foremost, I would like to say thank you to the Hunt Institute for allowing me to participate in this dialogue and this webinar. I really appreciate the opportunity. Also, thanks to our Wake Tech community, so our president, Dr. Scott Rawls, and some of our VPs and leaders, Brian Gann and Senator Cation, as far as leadership. But a lot of things are taking place on the ground level. When we talk about effective strategies and ways to engage students and families to take advantage of high school opportunities that are free, I think the key thing that we have to keep in mind is really have to meet students and families where they are and build that necessary rapport in order for this training to move forward. And that can be done in a variety of ways. One of the key things that we do or that we utilize is implementing those targeted recruitment and outreach initiatives that we have in place. So that can be as simple as visiting those middle schools and high schools, participating in the parent nights, the new student orientations, or any dual enrollment sponsored events that your institution may host. The more your presence is seen, the more you're going to build that rapport with those students and families, which will make them a little bit more comfortable in learning a little bit more about not just the program itself, but what community college is and what community college represents. On the flip side of that, it's not necessarily just us giving general information. We want to dive a little bit deeper in terms of bringing our academic programs and resources to those schools and community events so that the students and families can see what's actually taking place within the classroom. So giving kudos to one of my partners here at Wake Tech. His name is Mr. Anthony Garnes, our Director of Career and College Access. He has created some wonderful programming that allows our academic programs to visit the middle schools and the high schools and these community events where they actually take their fun tech things and allow students to experiment and see what they're going to learn when they reach that point of enrolling in dual enrollment. So again, those targeted recruitment and outreach initiatives are definitely key. Davis, you mentioned this a little bit as well. When we talk about technological advancements or utilizing technology, that is also key as well. Not every student may be able to visit a Wake Tech campus or community college. So we have to use our technological resources to reach these students and families through email, through text, which can be done if a college or institution has the means, utilizing a customer relationship management system, also known as a CRM. So being able to use a CRM gives us a world of wonders to reach those students and families in a wide variety of different ways. And that's something that we've seen that has benefited us in terms of parent engagement, getting the awareness and information out to really understand and know what is actually taking place. And not only that, I'm old school. I love one-on-one communication and sitting down with the student and family member. But in the event, again, that they cannot reach us on a campus, we also offer virtual appointments as well. So kind of like we're doing now with the webinar. And then lastly, as we're having those conversations and creating the dialogue, really highlighting the benefits of free high school opportunities. So this can be done by highlighting financial affordability. Community colleges are cost friendly, and this is coming from a four-year university graduate. Financial affordability is key, especially with the opportunity of free dual enrollment opportunities. Financial affordability, demonstrating college readiness and rigor, having the ability to earn stackable credentials and credits. When we talk about those state industry certifications and earning your potentially a full two-year associate's degree, and then also highlighting success stories as well. Students have been through where other students are currently at now and showing that, hey, I've done this and you can do this as well. So it's an honor and a pleasure to actually not just serve in this position, but kind of be the boots on the ground to help facilitate this dual enrollment program that we have here in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you so much, Elvin. As a reminder to the audience, you are able to submit any questions that you'd like through the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your screen. But I do have a couple of questions I'd like to ask for the panelists before we open the floor up to the audience. How can we cultivate a broader access to free high school pathways that you were talking about, Elvin, like dual enrollment and early college programs, while also ensuring that these opportunities translate into meaningful post-secondary credentials and viable career outcomes? And Davis, I'll start with you. You're welcome to respond with what you're seeing.
Well, again, big picture, there's a lot of technical things that need to be done, and I don't mean technical, but like Elvin is talking about relationships, and it's really like a learning when you're reaching out to a middle school family who has no one who has. So that there's a lot to be, but at the more global level of leadership within colleges at all levels and state leadership, we have to have a more purposeful pathways mindset. First of all, we have to see that there are a lot more students could benefit from this than currently do. Most of those 4 million high school CTE students don't take, in North Carolina and every other state, don't take a dual credit course. We could double the number if every one of those did with the proper support. But we can't just offer them courses. We have to offer them a purposeful pathway. Legislatures, students, parents, legislators, community members, high school superintendents need to, and college, leadership need to. We can't just be offering college courses. We need to be offering pathways to post-secondary credentials that will lead to good jobs and degrees that will lead to further career advancement. And if I'm a parent, we need to expect the colleges not just to offer a high quality college course, but advising, working with my high school counselors. It's the college, it's Wake Tech is offering these programs, and they really have to step up as they do, but community colleges generally. There are key roles for states. We keep talking about this as free college, and where you do have states like North Carolina that are pathways oriented, like Elvin talked about, this College and Career Promise program provides funding for eligible high school students, but they've got to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, they've got to be, Elvin, they've got to be in a career technical path or a transfer path in a baccalaureate. So this has huge potential returns for families, for states, and for taxpayers, but it's got to be done purposefully. Texas just implemented as part of their restructuring and funding for community college, scholarships for free and reduced lunch students to take dual enrollment courses for free, but they have to be in a pathway, either to a degree, a bachelor's in a particular major, not just general education, or a career technical AAS apprenticeship program. And the Texas scheme offers performance funding for students who take 15 credits in a pathway, they give them $3,500. So we're seeing colleges think about how can we fund promise programs to help students complete the remaining, if they take 15 credits in high school paid for by the taxpayer, how can we use that performance funding to pay for the remaining 45 credits in an associate applied science in engineering tech or in cyber or a bachelor's path in biosciences. So it's got to be very purposeful. One opportunity we've seen is in urban areas, high school career academies, where in Title I high schools, where they have to take, and Elvin's, I want to hear what he says, because I'm talking theory here, but he does this work. Large schools, 2,500 students, where every student is in a career academy. They're not just doing narrow vocational skills. They are, sure, they're getting exposed to a particular field. And this is an opportunity for Wake Tech, for community colleges to put not a whole degree, but strategic courses, but then very importantly, Elvin and his colleagues using current students, advising students onto a path. Okay, you're interested in business. These are the pathways, and these are the kind of courses you need to take in high school. And look, you can take this course here. In rural areas, they're not large enough usually to do, but we see the same thing with rural CTE programs, career technical programs. Again, the college offering the sort of the foundation courses in conjunction with the high school, often near a high school career technical career center, where the students can come over, take those, like fluid power, college level fluid power. If you can nail that course really hard, you're on your way, and then get advising by the college faculty and advisors on how can you, finish this this diesel program right after you graduate in less than a year for no cost, and then get into a job where your employer will pay for your continued education. That's sort of the model that we're seeing. So the opportunity at a high level, but it's this mindset. It's higher education for everyone, but it's got to be purposeful on a pathway. And we, the higher education, have to reach down and work with the schools to strategically place high quality courses, but also to advise students on a pathway and connect them. I really like Elvin's idea of connecting them with current students, like, someone from your local high school, you meet this guy in the Wake Tech cyber program, and you're like, that guy dated my sister. He's such a loser, but if he can do it, you know what I mean? These are, that's how you make connections with people to show that if that guy can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. Elvin, tell us more about what you're seeing in terms of purposeful pathways.
Oh, where do I begin? Several things that we've done here at Wake
Yeah,
Tech.
Wake Tech's slogan is "Purposeful Pathways Are Us." I know your president.
So of course, we abide by the Career College Promise Program operating procedures, and they have to stay within the confines of those different programs, whether it's college transfer or CTE related opportunities. But we've been able to work with our local school partners to develop designated program or pilot programs to target specific schools and demographics to ensure that that we're meeting the needs of being able to participate in not just the college transfer courses, but those CTE related opportunities as well. Also, but to go back to the original question of how we cultivate broader access. One thing that I highly am thankful for is the creation of MOUs and articulation agreements, and that is something that is huge here for this in the state of North Carolina, in which now it's mandated that all 58 community colleges have an MOU in alignment with their local public school district, as well as the incorporation of the early colleges as well. So I think when you bring all of the partners together at the table, the community college representatives, the high school staff members that meet with students on a daily basis, the leaders and administrators from the central offices for those school districts, that's how we began to put the pieces together to ensuring that we're meeting the needs of the students, whether it's through targeted or targeted academic support, um, working to find one of the or working to solve one of the biggest issues that we have here within Wake County, which is transportation and also sustainability of these programs. Because as we continue to grow, we have to have funding, we have to have staffing, no matter what side of the spectrum that you look at it. When we bring everybody together, that's the key part of making this work. So definitely establishing those MOUs, articulation agreements of how these pathways translate to those stackable credentials, or how those courses will translate over to Wake Tech or those four-year institutions. Those things are key. But definitely having the buy-in from all parties will definitely helps benefit everyone that is involved, not just us as staff members, but also the students and families as well.
I do want to clarify that's great on the ground, how it happens, but big picture, we talk about tuition free. There are about a dozen states, including North Carolina, Texas, and others, that provide substantial funding for dual credit. The remainder provide only partial credit, and then there are some, probably a dozen or so, that provide none. Even so, we're seeing efforts in states that do not provide funding because if you're offering tuition free, the college needs resources to do all these outreach stuff that Elvin's talking about. And CCP helps defray those costs because North Carolina funds it. But most states only provide partial funding, and a substantial number of states provide none. Still, we're seeing efforts using local tax-based funding, local philanthropy, local county and city funding, which probably happens even in North Carolina and other states that have this, to create these more purposeful pathways. Because, once you see them, they just make sense to people. And the more employers can talk about this in chamber meetings, but in their hiring, is Wake Tech is a sort of a feeder to us, the more it will persuade parents and students and school board members to, want to partner with community colleges like Wake Tech to get students on a pathway. They'll see the end in mind. And but there are states, it's much more challenging to do the kind of work Elvin's talking about. It's challenging in general. And community colleges generally are meagerly funded, but in many states, it's hard to do. Still, we're seeing efforts to find other sources because this idea of purposeful pathways is so compelling to people. And most places face, labor shortages in these high skill areas.
Yeah, thank you for that, Davis. We have some great questions in the Q&A. And since we were kind of on the topic of financial support and financial aid, I might start with the question pertaining to financial aid. So Monique Anair wrote in with a question about how do you see workforce Pell grants integrating with non-credit post-secondary CTE training?
So Workforce Pell offers a great opportunity. Workforce Pell would not apply to high school students, but if you built this on-ramp, you could create a Workforce Pell short-term training to, jettison students right out of high school in May of the graduating year by fall to get into a much better job and then to pursue their AAS bachelor's degrees at Wake Tech or their local community college, or the bachelor's degree at a university while they're working. So we have to think about how to package these on-ramps from high school, and Workforce Pell provides an opportunity to do debt-free, college-free on-ramp to get to those better jobs right out of high school, which we're going to offer not only better pay, but more importantly, for career opportunities for learning and networking and advancement.
Thank you. Elvin, one of the things that you talked about was building trust at Wake Tech with students in terms of your dual enrollment engagement and recruitment. And Esther Coleman wrote in with a question about that. They ask, how are you opening these opportunities to students of color, students with disability, et cetera? Some may not trust the system. So how do you build trust and break down those and other barriers for students with diverse backgrounds?
We kicked down the door. Not just kidding. But seriously, again, originally part of our strategic plan was targeting those underrepresented populations who may not have been privy to or participated in dual enrollment compared to some of their other counterparts. So the strategic planning that we've had in place in terms of going into the schools and offering a little bit more of a hands-on approach to those Title I schools per se has allowed us to see an increase in those students participating in dual enrollment, and not just participation, but also an increased overall cumulative GPA individually and collectively for the program. So we do have the necessary programming in place currently that we've assisted those schools and those students, and we have seen positive results.
You.
I mean, that's what I was talking about, wasting talent. We're seeing communities, and I was talking to someone who's a dual credit advisor in a college, and he has a master's degree. But when he was in high school, he played baseball, and some of the students on his baseball team would go to the college in the afternoon. He always wondered where they were going. He's a student of color. He went and got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and now he's leads counseling at a college. But he didn't know about it. So many of these communities aren't hearing about it. That's why I mentioned career technical. It's so ironic because the employers want people with career skills and interests, and yet there are all these career technical students, a lot of them young men, who we're really having trouble with as a society, convincing that post-secondary education is worth it. So Elvin's right. They don't trust us, and for good reason. The only way is relationship building and then delivering on and providing the support to your child, to you, to show you how you can take this really tough, electronics course or tough applied math course, or anatomy and physiology. And this is tough, but we're going to help you through it, and you can do it.
And one thing that I'll also add into there, also look at some of the organizations or resources that you have within the inside of your institution. We have a Pathways Mentoring program that targets minority male students to help guide them along the way that are specifically for students who want to participate in dual enrollment. So again, we are creating program that is designed to target those populations to, again, not only increase enrollment, but also make a true impact of high GPAs, providing necessary resources, which also then leads to credential completion and allowing those students to reach their goals.
Awesome. We had another question about measuring success, the metrics that we're paying attention to, right? So how do we measure success beyond enrollment? What metrics matter most when evaluating the impact of post-secondary pathways? And I'm going to personally add a secondary question. Do you have access? Like if the metric you think you should use, you know what that is, do you have access to it at your institution or otherwise? And are people able to use that metric on a regular basis? So what are we using to know that we're doing an okay job or a good job or a terrible job in dual enrollment other than enrollment?
One of the focuses of our work is to provide early momentum metrics that colleges and schools can use. Well, let me just break it down sort of globally. I usually start with the end in mind. The goal here is by 5, 6 years out of high school, the student needs to have a completed an AAS apprenticeship or a bachelor's degree. We're doing research in Texas which show that students who have vocational education only, they have higher wages coming out, as you would expect of high school, but by the time they're 24, those with AAS's apprenticeships and bachelors are way, and then there's other research. Okay, number two, they need to go immediately on post-high school, which is why I was talking about packaging promise programs and workforce Pell and whatever you else to take those 15 credits. So that's a key thing. And every college and high school has that data through, in North Carolina, they have it at the state level, and as in other states. But if you don't have it, you can use the National Student Clearinghouse. Number three, we want to say, are they taking at least one or two core courses in a pathway in college and getting at least a B? And then very importantly, have they been helped by someone at a college or some adult to develop at least a preliminary plan? Those are and we're validating those in a number of states, but the research suggests, and practically those are things that every college in the country can and should be measuring. The other thing is, I want to know what field they're in and how they do in that first term, whether it's at a university or a community college or a trade school post high school. And the Wake Tech can look at that for its own students. Oh, and then lastly, who is getting on these pathways? Is it our low income students, students of color, migrants, our young women getting into engineering, tech, and manufacturing and industrial trade jobs where they're underrepresented? Are the people coming out of these on-ramps reflective of our high school and our college populations? Those are all eminently doable. But most importantly, we're researchers. We can help you do the research, but these numbers have to provide a conversation, and they're a real opportunity. Bring in your employers, because what you're doing, have the potential here, is to create essentially a supply chain of talent for the local employers in Raleigh or in rural Wyoming. This is a talent supply chain, and these are the data that we can use to really draw students to opportunity and meet our talent needs.
I'm going to second everything that Davis has just said, but I'm going to reiterate that point of the work-based learning opportunities and job placement, because that is the key. That is the key. That is the key.
He's
When we
right.
talk about, sustainability and career-related opportunities and future sense and financial stability, that's the end game. That's the goal. We want these students employed after all of this experience from an academic standpoint and also from a work-based learning standpoint. So, Davis, thank you for that.
North Carolina is a state where you can look at that wage outcomes. Many states you can't, but that's why you can involve employers at least at a descriptive level. Are these employers getting the students out of these initial on-ramp pipelines that are employees that are meeting their needs? And it's not just a one-time survey. This is an ongoing conversation that Elvin and his colleagues have with the employers in the key industries. Every job and other technologies are changing all of these jobs. And we have this is the real opportunity right out of high school to get students into these, because you're going to learn most on the job anyhow. And good jobs will pay at least part of your further education.
Yes, and I'll add one last thing to that. For those that are in leadership positions, especially those conversations that you're having with your local school districts, if you have not done so, definitely begin to have those conversations of, is there a business alliance? Is there some type of advisory board that includes these work-based learning or career-related industry partners? Are they at the tables? If not, you definitely need to bring them in for sure.
And your local universities. This is supplying
Yes,
students
definitely.
who, again, we've been talking, both of us have said, Since 2015, we've seen a decline all over the country in young students pursuing post-secondary education, even as the education requirements and the learning requirements for the good jobs has continued to increase because of the technology. So, this is the opportunity to build the supply of, it's there, the potential talent is there, we just got to unleash it.
Thank you. So we got another question that is really specific, but I think it could be useful for our audience to be able to take into consideration. So Stephen Reese from Wayne Community College wrote in and said, I'm department chair in engineering and manufacturing. We do a great job, but last year we hit a roadblock when our Wayne County public school system changed to not accepting 2 credit hours for high school credit. This wiped us out in offering students introductory classes in our certificates, such as mechanical engineering tech, computer integrated machining, and mechatronics. How can we fix that so students will once again, and counselors at the high school register students for our CTE classes?
This is social marketing. This is, I mean, what Wayne County's well known, I've known for many years, this is, they're putting arbitrary barriers to access to, really high quality career technical education. First of all, we need to educate parents and students to show that a pathway through Wayne County's, advanced manufacturing and, advanced technology programs can lead to these kind of jobs, to build interest. We need to educate school board members to say, look, this is a pathway. Wayne County's, has this opportunity, but we need the access. And then we need employers on board who, to say, we need these people. And look, we've worked with Wayne County and the schools to provide this pathway. We do see this, and there is, and in both urban and rural areas, potential competition between community college career technical programs and high school CTE. But we can work together to have a win-win. And sometimes I'm seeing increasingly colleges working to certify high school career technical teachers so that they can teach the college courses, or making sure that we're not duplicating what the high school can do. Elvin's, it's got to be, he talked about these articulation agreements or these MOUs. These are the kinds of things we have to work out so that it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't give up, man.
Don't give up. Don't give
this
up.
Is, you get, it just doesn't make sense. But in fairness, I will say, the schools and the community colleges have different incentives. They have different funding. Sometimes, like with Perkins, it's the same pot that they're competing over, for example. But I think there is, but more and more of this funding is performance-based. And the only thing that's going to convince students to come to us is, can we achieve outcomes? So I think, and again, purposeful dual enrollment leads to higher high school graduation and college going, which K-12 schools are increasingly, judged on. And it's what everyone wants. So, understanding how there's going to be conflict, but let's figure out how to work this out and make it work best for the student and a pipeline to our employers.
Elvin, can you speak to what you're seeing around that at Wake Tech in terms of, high school or LEA, the K-12 systems and the community colleges working together and working through these kinds of scheduling and course credit elements?
Yeah, I'm going to speak on behalf of the students. Quite often we see students come into our offices, or if we're meeting with them during a virtual appointment, basically saying, "Hey, I'm taking this particular dual enrollment course, and I'm not necessarily getting the credit that I'm looking for, or it's not applying to, what I'm trying to do." Not saying that there's anything bad taking place, but across the board, there's a disconnect of goals between institutions, whether that's community college, university, or that local school district, which I refer back to the point of coming together, meeting of the minds, leadership, whoever needs to be at that table, and synchronizing these goals together, not for our benefit, but more so the benefit of the student. But again, that what is taking place at Wayne, we see in different capacities, but again, when you have individualized goals and not necessarily coming together, that creates conflict. So again, for those that are at Wayne, keep pushing, like Davis and Holly said, we got to keep, pushing the needle.
You. We have
We
an
want this to become
anonymous.
the
Yeah,
expectation of students,
yeah.
of families, of community organizations, of school boards, of principals. It just makes so much more sense than the sorting system we have now. And, I mean, Wake Tech's been at this a long time, and as have many other colleges. And even then, there are bumps in the road. But I just think,
Agreed.
this is an opportunity that we can figure this out, because at the end of the day, even economically, there are ways to work this where, both institutions can win, and you're growing the pie. You're building talent of students who come back, go to your universities, go to graduate school. You're expanding opportunity rather than just continuing to sort.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
and dual enrollment is growing at a fast rate. When you look at the data and the statistics, whether it's here at Waytech or any other institution. So, as long as everybody's on the same page, it will make things a lot easier when we talk about streamlined processes and making and decision making.
Yeah, I want to use another question that came in to kind of pull on that thread a little bit more. So you've talked about working together, understanding the greater goal, serve the greater good of the students' pathways, and get these two and sometimes more than two organizations to work together and collaborate. And we've talked a little bit about scheduling and those conversations that need to take place. Are there other things that either of you have seen in terms of logistical barriers like transportation, and other kinds of logistical issues that come up with dual enrollment, that you can share with this audience as things to keep in mind?
I'm just amazed that Elvin is such a sweet, smiling guy, because these are two very different bureaucracies you're talking to. Nothing against either, but scheduling is one of the big issues. But just the whole the data systems don't talk. You know, so there's a lot.
Transportation is probably
Yeah,
the largest
transportation.
issue, not just in this area, but probably statewide, depending on where those local institutions lie. Access to technology on the student spectrum, because not every student has internet access at home. Not every student has a computer or laptop. In a day and age where a lot of what they do from a student perspective, they're using a computer, they're using a smartphone, they're using a tablet. But again, students may not have those designated resources to be able to not only participate but also perform uh, as well academically also as well.
So we're seeing colleges with satellite centers that used to serve a lot of adults, for example. In this might not be the case with Wake, but I don't know. Across the country, many states uh, using those. They tend to be near to high schools. Um, the sending faculty to high school career tech centers, and better connecting most dual credit in the country is taught by qualified high school teachers in the high school. Better connecting them to the faculties at the community college are all ways to make this connection with, far-flung high schools. Transportation is an issue. I do have to say that uh, uh, I'm concerned, and I can say this as an outsider, I'm very concerned about the rise of asynchronous online. I'm not against online, but asynchronous online sort of self-study courses. We're seeing this. It's just not acceptable. Again, I'm not saying don't use online. You can make online very interactive. And I understand the challenge of reaching rural schools or even inner city schools that have to travel across a big city. Um, but that's not a solution. We have to figure out how to work together to create an engaging, active learning experience, especially when we're talking about these critical foundation college courses, to make them challenging, but really well supported and well taught.
And I'm going to throw a statistic out here to Davis's point. 90% of our students take at least one online course, and that could be either asynchronous. 9 times out of 10, it's asynchronous, but also synchronous as well, also incorporated with the mix of hybrid. But I mean, with that number is staggering, in terms of the number of students that are taking courses online. And online is not for everyone. There are students out there that thrive in a seated face-to-face interaction when we talk about coursework, which is phenomenal. We love to see that. That's kind of the old school way that I'm definitely accustomed to. But it's alarming to see the number of students that are taking online courses. We can understand why, of course, and we're thankful that that opportunity is there, but it's amazing to see.
But I'm saying, especially for high school students
Yeah.
and new college students, we have to make sure that those online courses and the faculty teaching them are really well supported, because it's got to be engaging. You have to have active
Yes.
learning. You have to have interaction. You can't just put out a shell. Or, we see in these online universities, they don't really have teachers. You know, that's not uh, that's not acceptable in my view, based on the research.
Yeah.
We have to use online, absolutely, but make it engaging and support the teachers who are teaching those courses, because it's hard to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are very short on time, but before we leave the Q&A, can I ask both of you to just give us a very short, maybe bullets of the role that employers and local industries can play in shaping those high school pathways to ensure that workforce alignment in their region?
Your industry is changing, technology is changing your industry, and unless you're in a place where you can import talent and afford to do so, you need to look to the people in your region, and you want to have a workforce that reflects your customer base who's in your region, and you want employees who will stay with your firms and your industry. This is the way to do it. This is the way. Just as you work with your suppliers of component parts or services, you don't just put them at arm's length. The community colleges, the schools working together in these pathways is your supplier of talent. Get them right out of high school, and they're going to be hopefully sitting where you are, leading these firms, which are going to look very different 20 and 30 years from now. You have an opportunity to really build the talent base for your industry, not just your company, by working in this way, because we're just wasting talent and it's costing you a lot of money.
Yeah, for us, we're in an area which we have a thriving economy where employers are looking for these students out of high school. To be quite frank with you, you know, I can't think of the number of times that I've heard of academic partners saying, "Hey, we have this company looking to hire our students," and it makes you feel good. But again, as David's mentioned, definitely have those industry partners, be present is definitely key for sure.
In these rural satellite centers that I mentioned, we've seen them all over the country. North Carolina, in more rural areas, we were recently talking to folks in Southern Alabama, that over 10 counties. They have local employer groups for their regional centers where they do working with the high school career technical centers, bring students over to take these foundation courses in the CTs, the anatomy and physiology, the fluid powers, these hard courses, along with the applied math and writing courses. So you're even in very rural areas, there's need for people to smart ag, energy systems, energy systems within schools, um, people with these skills who they got to grow their own talent. So there's opportunities even in rural areas to do this.
Thank you. Well, this has been a great discussion. I'm going to hand it over to Waverly, but just to briefly summarize, we've heard a lot of good takeaways. We've heard about having purposeful pathways, not just individual courses. We've talked about the role and the importance of deep collaboration between K-12 and higher education institutions. We've talked about deep engagement in dual enrollment, not just waiting for students when they get in high school, but really reaching down into the middle grades and even elementary grades to engage them. And we've talked about the role of employers and understanding that building your own base, these students with credentials will stay, are more likely to engage in the long term as our industries are changing so quickly. So with that, I will hand it back over to Waverly to do a couple of housekeeping notes before we dismiss.
Well, thank you all. I wish we could keep this conversation going. But we're about at time. So again, thank you for joining us for today's engaging and informative discussion. Before closing today, the Hunt Institute is going to share a link for our upcoming webinars. The next webinar that we're hosting with the higher ed team is the power of experiential learning, pathways to career success. So around the same vein, but more on that experiential learning, apprenticeships, and what that could look like. And it will be held Thursday, October 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern to 11 a.m. Pacific. So as a reminder, we have to load those webinars. And again, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you all again in October. Thanks, everybody.